in North Carolina, when we're loaded up the rest of it. Yeah.
Oh my God.
So ready when you are.
I'm ready. Go for it.
Okay. Hello, everyone. I'd like to call this meeting of the Madison Board of Education Finance Committee meeting to order. It is, I guess, 5:35. And we have a short agenda tonight. We are going to discuss the 2024-25 budget calendar. Maybe talk about the budget assumptions process and then open it up for public comment. We have with us, of course, Dr. Cook, Chairman Lebaskin, and our finance director, Stacy Novitz. Emily is out today. And I guess we can start with the calendar, which is a handout. And we do this every year. And I guess I'd like to, and we're formally kicking it off now. But I'd like to invite Dr. Cook and Stacy to say, what are the critical dates or hard deadlines that we'd like to adhere to? You want to say?
Sure. So I think tonight, as you said, kicks it off. I think the first big dates, other than internally, we're going back and forth with admin and code and then bringing it to you. And we're looking at October 17th for the finance committee to eventually approve the calendar and for the Board of Ed to be on board as well. So that's probably the first big date. The next date for me is November 17th. So we will open up Munis, our financial system, probably within the next couple of weeks for all the buildings to start entering in their budget. We do give them a deadline of November 17th so that my office can then start combing through all of the accounts, making sure that everything's entered, nothing was missed. And then again, internally, we start doing discussions after that. Then internally on the 6th of December is when we meet with admin. So COAT will do a little bit of work after that initial deadline, go through everything, come up with a plan for our admin retreat. And then on the 6th, we will meet with admin and come up with a recommended budget, hopefully, to then review with you all on December 19th. And then to be, after that, be distributed to the full Board of Ed so that they can have it over the holidays. And then the first workshop would be scheduled for January 9th. And then a second one, should we meet it on the 16th. We're looking for action to be taken by January 23rd. Historically, we've used February 1st to kind of work in, coordination with the town's deadlines. And then we look for a presentation from the Board of Ed around the middle of February to the Board of Selectmen and Board of Finance.
That's good.
Yeah, I would just say, seems like we start it earlier every year, like the budget. I know for Stacy it never stops, but for us, when we have the vote last May, we implement the budget, and then when we come back in September, working with Heather on some things already. Heather's already starting to work on the budget, which personnel is obviously the biggest driver of that. Heather and Stacy and I'll be involved a little bit. We'll start having those conversations on health insurance pretty soon. That is also, a huge account and a big driver of our budget increase this past year. So we're, as we're hoping for good news, we certainly need to budget appropriately for health insurance. So we'll take their guidance. But we start, again, talking with the administrative council pretty early on about budget with Coke very early on about budget. If Stacy leads us in those discussions and we get into the academic piece of that, and Stacy's good at keeping us to the firm deadlines, so we appreciate that, and always keeping that in the forefront. But it's I think it's a good time frame. It's worked well for us in the past, and so we appreciate that and all the finance committee's work that we do before we recommend it to them. Okay, thank you. Any questions or comments?
No.
Okay.
Sounds like a good plan.
Okay. Fill in those are the milestones, we'll fill in the dates, as needed. Okay, and then we move to the second item on our agenda, budget assumptions process. And last year we had put out a budget guideline where we had annual budget guidelines, Board of Ed priorities, and then 2023-24 admin council objectives. And I guess I'd like to touch on those briefly from last year so we can kind of see how we did. I thought we did pretty well, not to be modest. So we always want to conserve energy, participate in shared services, things like that. Those are annual things. Last year, our board's priorities were to provide students with the opportunity to demonstrate knowledge in testing platforms with test familiarity, create a budget that reflects reasonable expectations with room for supporting priority, and to foster a strong culture of students who promote inclusion and respectful discourse, and to support approaches that help to mitigate the impact of student anxiety and depression. So those were the board's priorities. The admin council's operating budget objectives were to identify priorities in the curriculum cycle, to plan and start the writing process for the systematic revision of the world language, social studies, pay attention to state mandates, to fund a transition plan for director of facilities, to transition from a curriculum lead model to a curriculum generalist, continuation of armed security coverage, to continue efforts in technology support and to replace obsolete equipment, and then, as always, to respond to planned and cycle maintenance needs. So I guess I'd like to ask if there's anything different this year that we'd like to focus on, and what would you like to see differently this year in terms of the process? That's an open question for everybody.
If you want me to go first, I'm happy to. So I think in terms of the process first, so every 2 years we know we have board members up for election. My understanding is there shouldn't be any changes in board members on the board, which is great news, because 2 years ago we held a little bit back in terms of some of the things that we did, waiting for after the election, because we know that it's the new board that will vote on the budget. And so our plan is to, like last year, hit the ground running, just assume that everybody will be here for that and go through that process, which I think makes it easier on everybody involved. In terms of the major goals, it's, as we've talked about throughout, we have a grant expiring in June 30th that funds 2 social workers and 2 interventionists for us. The 2 interventionists are academic interventionists at the elementary level, and have not had any discussions with administrators at this point, but I know over the past 2 years, certainly there was the goal to continue those positions, the social workers being very key to make sure we have a social worker in each building. And then the interventionist, we will see at 7:30. I feel that there's certainly had an impact on our district in a very positive way. And so I would look to certainly look to continue those. I think we also know we're going to dive deep into all the schools and look for schools to potentially make some reduction recommendations and have those. So we hope to offset some of those new positions, not just look to come out and say, we need 4 new positions or something like that. So, but that's certainly our goal to continue that, but take a hard look at each of our, with our organization. I think we've been very good at doing that in the past for a long period of time, as we've had some decline in enrollment, and now that we're seeing some increased enrollment at the elementary level, have to be mindful of that as well. Beyond that, like I said, I haven't had too many in-depth discussions, received goals from the administration, the things that didn't make it. Last year were kind of of a smaller nature, some facilities things, some, additional stipends and things like that. But we really looked hard at those and had to make some tough decisions, as we do every budget year. But we'll start those discussions soon.
From my perspective, I would just remind you that we have the board retreat coming up on the 26th, and we probably will have discussions that will facilitate toward leading to some budget assumptions that we develop as priorities as a board, as you know from last year. So that'll be a similar process.
Okay, yeah, thank you. Stacy, do you have any 2 cents that you?
No, I just think we're gonna, costs are going up. We have to be mindful of that. We always try to come in as low as we can, but costs are going up. We don't know the health insurance. Yeah, we have some contractual increases that we know are higher or not as low as we would like. And then in addition to the new positions or the positions weaning us off of the grant, there are also going to be moving expenses, I think. I mean, we saw that when we closed Island, there's moving expenses that are not necessarily part of the building project, and they're not necessarily an ongoing operating expense. So I do think those expenses may pop up, in the next couple of years for us as well. Yeah, and as far as doing anything differently, I think we really fine-tuned the calendar a few years ago, where we got the full board involved earlier on, so that there were no surprises, and that we worked closely with admin and the full board, and things seemed to work well the last couple of years.
Right, great. Well, yeah, thank you, Dr. Cook. Thank you, Stacy. Are there any questions from the public online or in person? All right. Well, I had the over my over under, but let's go ahead and